Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Pierre, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
Yes, this is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together, we watch the movie, we talk about it, and on this particular episode we are reviewing a vote winner every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Our $5 and up patrons get to vote between 4 movies, and the winner for this month was 10 Cloverfield Lane, a kind of sequel to Cloverfield, unsurprisingly. This had an interesting release. It kind of sprung out of nowhere. Very rare for this day and age, but it just kind of showed up with a trailer and said, it's coming out in a month. Oh, by the way, Cloverfield is now an anthology science fiction movie series. Kind of almost like in the way that Halloween 3 tried to turn Halloween into a horror anthology series. Cloverfield's kind of that for like alien sci-fi stuff. Admittedly, 10 Cloverfield Lane by itself, actually admitting that it's sci-fi is kind of a spoiler, because the movie doesn't really get to that until very, 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 very late on. But it's a sci-fi podcast. I can't really hide it. We're talking about it, so
I was going to bring that up in the spoilers.
So apologies, but well, I mean, otherwise, why are we talking about it?
We don't know if it's a spoiler or not.
So, otherwise though, we'll keep this spoiler free until we warn you of spoilers, and we'll get into things. But the basic premise of this is that Mary Elizabeth Winstead plays a character the name Michelle, who is running away from her fiance at the start of the movie. She gets into a car crash and she wakes up in a bunker, a doomsday bunker, with a very unhinged John Goodman, who has built this place, and a third character named Emmett. And she is told that there's been some sort of an attack and that the air up above is not breathable, and she's very dubious of accepting this, but that is the position she finds herself in. So a lot of the movies her try to suss out if this is real, is it not real, and is John Goodman dangerous, is he not dangerous, that kind of thing. So it's that kind of thriller. Directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who has made very little in the way of feature-length movies other than this. He's apparently working on a movie that's supposed to be the next Predator, so hopefully that turns out to be good. But yeah, so, but I guess the first thing to get out of the way is that, yeah, the first Cloverfield didn't leave like a lasting impression on me, and then when we rewatched it for the show, like it just went down in my opinion. Like even the vague memories I had of like kind of liking it went away, and I was like, yeah, I'm not really into this anymore. 10 Cloverfield Lane is the good one. Mm-hmm. It is a great movie that is just a great standalone story. You don't have to see Cloverfield at all for it. In fact, I'd recommend you just don't bother. Just watch 10 Cloverfield Lane. It's
That's actually how I saw it. So I didn't see Cloverfield until we reviewed it just a few weeks ago for the first time. And I enjoyed it, but it was my first time watching it. Mm. And I said in the review that I didn't have as much experience watching terrible found footage movies as you have. So it was, fun for me. And so when I went and saw this in the theater, I had not seen Cloverfield. But I knew that there was monsters. I didn't know what they were, but I knew that there were monsters in it.
But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in this. There's a lot of stuff to talk about with characters. It is a bottle movie with a very limited cast of 3. But barring one or two small things, like you hear the fiance's voice on the phone, which is apparently Bradley Cooper. So
Yeah, I saw that.
Random.
In the IMDb.
Like, I guess he's friends with someone, and they probably just give him this little sort of sneaky cameo because it's a fun thing to do. Yeah. But
hey, he's good with voiceover work, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I heard him on the phone in this and went, "That's Rocket." Her boyfriend's Rocket. No wonder she's in such a weird place. She's dating a raccoon. Mm-hmm. But it's a tense film. It's completely paced immaculately, I felt, especially since a little behind the curtain here, we delayed this review a little bit after the first time we were trying to record it. So I've actually watched it twice now, in about a week, because we pushed the episode, and there's going to be a bit of a gap between this episode and the next one as well, because Tara's got some stuff going on, can't record for about a week, and which I suppose I should tell you, but it's kind of weird because there's kind of been a gap with the last one, so this is kind of your island episode in the middle of like a gap, and then we'll be back to normal weekly episodes. Maybe you'll even get like two quick episodes together when Dune comes out, because it'll be around then. I think we'll be back, but
should be back in time for Dune.
Yeah, but I've watched it twice, and the funny thing is that watching it again today as a rewatch, and I wasn't necessarily planning on like completely paying attention. I think I was like, oh, I'll put it on and sort of refresh my memory because I watched it a week ago now. I ended up sitting paying attention to it by and large most of the time. It's
a great film. I mean, I totally agree with that. It's very engaging. It's paced really well. The music, I think, it really accompanies it, like to where you do like pay attention, because the music's asking you to. When she's like figuring things out and troubleshooting in her mind, like, because the cues and because the acting. I think everyone's cast really well in this film, and I think the characters, because they're very limited, are incredibly well written and very capable.
Hey, that's why I like good bottle movies. Now, obviously, there's a lot of bad ones too, but the reason why I like bottle movies so much and bottle episodes of TV shows is because it forces the writing to be like so good, because it has to be. If the writing isn't good, then all you're left with is like a small group of characters in a building or a room or whatever it is. So there's
I think when I watched this movie for the first time in the theater, I remember being really impressed with Winstead's character, because like almost immediately she is fully capable of helping herself and trying to figure things out. I was used to seeing like women who are trapped in a place waiting for like whoever the culprit is to mess up, to find their opportunity to try to escape or hurt them back or something. But right away she's like productive. I remember that like being so cool because it's not something you see very often in these types of scenario films.
But there's also a character arc where she does have her limits, and a part of the arc is about exploring what that limit is and why she has that limit, and we'll get into that in spoilers obviously, but that is there. Emmett, who is like the other guy who's there, who's kind of a likable, kind of becomes a friend to her, he has his own little arc as well. John Goodman, like all three of them have really nuanced performances that I'm going to like point out a lot of specific moments when we get to spoilers. There's a couple of moments that are very sinister or suggestive.
Dreadful. Yeah.
No, I was going to finish and say it, but are actually shockingly funny at the same time. There's a couple of moments in this that I think are darkly very funny.
Sure.
And most of it tends to be because John Goodman says something that has a really bad undertone, and it's the way Mary Elizabeth Winstead reacts with her eyes that just made me like laugh in like a sort of, not in like a hysterics, but like in like a, like her realizing what he's saying to her in the moment and processing it is kind of darkly funny.
Sure.
So there's a few moments like that. I think the sound design is very interesting. Both like the opening is very distinctly quiet. There's just music playing as the opening plays out before we eventually get the car crash, pretty much. And the silence is used again at a couple of key points. But even something as simple as like, you hear a lot of John Goodman breathing in this movie. It's like he's got a very sort of, he's a big guy, he's kind of out of breath a lot. And movies don't necessarily always keep that in. Like, they want to make it feel, I don't know, more pleasant or, more professional, whatever. But there's a very intentional choice here to hear him kind of out of breath between words and kind of hear him breathing down your neck a little bit, to feel his presence even when there is no words being spoken. There's a very smart use of the space between.
It's like an angry bull. You don't want him to charge at you.
So
yeah.
I think that's all used exception, and I think having now seen it 3 times total, with watching it twice now for this,
not my fault.
No, this one wasn't your fault. This was actually kind of a neutral thing. Both of us kind of needed to push it for different reasons.
Yeah, and then your mic thing broke.
And that's why the episode's particularly late, actually, is because you'll notice I've got a fancy new shock mount because the previous mount snapped and I couldn't use my mic for a couple of days. So
yeah,
that was a whole kerfuffle.
I do really love that John Goodman was cast in this. I mean, I think he's perfect in it, but also when I think of John Goodman as a character, like in films and in TV shows, I think of him as a friendly, like some person. I always think of him as like the dad from Roseanne, who is always mean, I guess he could be angered by his kids sometimes or by Roseanne, but like for the most part, he was so fair and loving
he
and
has,
warm and nice.
He has maybe like less comedic or I mean not less comedic, but less friendly roles. Like, you know, I think of like Big Lebowski's kind of like a nut job in that, but in a more funny way, right? Whereas,
sure. Yeah,
but
he's still kind of likable in that. You know?
I think this is more akin to like when like Robin Williams decided to do a couple of thrillers where he was the villain in those thrillers, and how good he was at being this menacing guy. And this isn't like a 1-to-1 because
this is a 1 hour photo.
This is kind of like okay, he's clearly a little, you know, he's got conspiracy theories, he's maybe a little off, but his intentions still might be good, right? There's still definitely a question.
He's just like a prepper, you know.
Yeah. For one of the great moments, you know, I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say this, but there's a great moment when he's first trying to explain what's happened up above. The way he casually throws in a sentence to implying that it might be Martians without even pausing, without sort of emphasizing it, he just throws it in. Like, it could be the Russians, maybe the Martians are here now. Like, it's like,
they finally made it or something. Did
you just say Martians? There's a little moment where but it's so, the way he just throws it in like it's nothing, it's just enough to say, okay, even if he has the best of intentions, even if like he is going to be great to her and to Emmett, and there's nothing sinister going on here, he's still got a bit of a screw loose. Like, there's still something there that needs to be like at least watched or kept an eye on. So very strong character dynamics between the three characters, very strong performances from all three actors. I think the direction from Trachtenberg, who, you know, was a first timer. I mean, I don't know if this is literally the first movie he made, but it was the first time I saw anything made by him.
He really doesn't have too much on his filmography that we can compare to. No.
So this is like, because obviously you feel relief when there's a movie coming up that, whether it be like a sequel to something or just a new movie, but you see a director you like or you know, and you have expectations based on that director, who tends to be the best person out of a movie production to gauge expectations on it, because the director's the one that's driving the force and all the rest of it, the one that's bringing it all together. Right. And sometimes when you see a movie and it's an unknown director, and you shouldn't feel this way because, I mean, the possibilities are endless. It could be anything from the most amazing thing you've ever seen to the worst thing you've ever seen. You don't know. It's a new name. But you do kind of veer, I think, towards, it's the unknown, so it feels like a riskier, because I guess there's more bad than good, ultimately. This is kind of the best case scenario when there's a name you don't recognize, where you watch it and go, I think I like this director. I think I want more from this director now. And all of a sudden, your list of names to have a bit of faith in, when you see them on a IMDb page or you see them on a trailer or whatever, you're like, okay, I can be excited for this now. And it's obviously, it's not directors we love let us down occasionally. That happens. It does happen. You know, speaking of Predator, Shane Black, for example, letting us down with one of those. But
I suspect that wasn't him.
Possibly.
I've heard some behind the scenes stuff. We're
doing that in the not too distant future, so let's save that.
Okay.
Because we're doing that. We've already done the first two. We'll be doing 3 and 4 in the near future. So, and possibly AVP, actually, now that I think about it.
That's right.
Yeah, because there's more Alien movies, so we should probably do AVP with the Predator movies. That makes sense.
Yeah. Because we're doing those once a year, so it's going to take a while.
Yeah. Oh, that means we need to do AVP next. Damn it.
Yeah, that's no problem.
I mean, not next on the show, I just mean next out of the Predator movies. Just to... I don't want people thinking that AVP's what's coming back after the 1 week off, or maybe the half week off. It kind of depends. We don't know exactly what
We're done with good Predator movies anyway.
Yeah.
Is there any to look forward to?
You've made me miserable now. You've made me miserable. Well, Dan Trachtenberg's Predator. That may be good.
Maybe, yeah.
Possibilities. The possibilities are endless.
So far, he's batting 100 for me because I've only seen one thing he's done.
I mean, it's easy to bat 100 when you've only made one thing, but
I don't know. I bet my first thing will be terrible.
Yeah, but I'm sure he did some short film. It's not like he just walked in one day and said, "I'm going to make a feature-length movie." Thank you, J.J. Abrams, Mr. Producer Man.
I'll do it. Hire me.
Yes. John Goodman, established actor. You will listen to me, even though I've never made anything before. So, yeah, no, it's hard to really fault much of this. I do have like one or small nitpicks that I can bring up, mostly revolving around the last like 20 minutes. And it's not that I dislike the last 20 minutes as a whole, just one or two small things in it that I think maybe go a bit too far. But I think the way it paces things out, where it sort of like gets the characters to believing certain things, so we can sort of go through different periods like of like, you know, like tension and solace and, you know, things in between, and all of that, the balancing act of that as the movie goes on is great. And I think the fact that it's held up on not only a second viewing but a third viewing that's been so quick after the second viewing is a good sign, because the thing that'll fail, right, if a movie is pretty good but there's some like maybe some pacing qualms or some issues there, is that if you try and watch it twice like close together, you'll really feel it on that second viewing. The fact that I didn't is like about as glowing as a praise as I can give to the structure of a movie.
Yeah. Well, you did the same thing with Replica, so how can we really trust it?
Yeah, but I never praised that movie's pacing though. That movie
has perfect pacing.
That movie does not have pacing. It's not a movie. Things just kind of happen occasionally. There's no pacing.
We're going to have to do Replica as a bonus soon so people know what we're talking about.
You're the one who keeps bringing it up. I'm not bringing up Replica.
You bring it up all the time. You shut your mouth.
You've got an agenda. You're trying to bring it up so that we have to do it. You're trying to create your own demand so that we have to supply
Everything's going exactly as planned.
So... yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else spoiler free that I'd like to say before we go into the details.
I do really like the direction. I think it's very, you know, there's a lot of dread that you feel for her character, especially when the first time I watched it, when you don't really know exactly what his intentions are with her. You know, she wakes up and she's like tied to a bed, basically. In a room with one door and no windows, and he's telling her that he did it to save her, but you're like, okay, but this it looks bad, and I think the dread, and then when the music kicks in, when she's starting to like figure things out and fight for herself, and there are some scenes that are really claustrophobic that were really effective as well. And the story just continued to like surprise me as it went along, the twist that it takes. And just when you think things are peaceful, you know, there's always a thing that happens to stir up some trouble again. And it's a good survival film, and it's a really good drama thriller, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, that first time he comes in to speak to her, you know, I mentioned the Martians line, which actually isn't even that scene, that's a later scene, but the way the camera doesn't show his face until a very specific line, and it's just, you know, it's just from behind his leg as she's looking up at him, talking to him, which first of all makes him very intimidating because she's on the ground, he's standing, you know, up in front of her,
and he's a big guy.
Yeah,
like,
so
Goodman's not a small person.
There's a visual power play happening just in the body language and all that stuff, but the fact that you don't cut to his face and see John Goodman, I mean, obviously we all recognize his voice, you know who John Goodman is, but it doesn't cut to his face until the line, "I'm going to keep you alive," which is technically an accurate statement. He's not lying when he says that. And I think that's, you know, you could sort of read into it a little bit and say, well, that's why that's the first time we see his face, because that's the first outright true thing he really says to her. So there's some great sort of things to sort of dig into. So I think with that, we will say spoilers from this point on, so we can talk about 10 Cloverfield Lane. You know, I mentioned the opening, you know, it's silent, just music playing as she's like leaving some place. We don't really get context too much, but we see like an engagement ring at the end of the scene sitting on a table, so you can kind of like infer.
Yeah, it's some city. It looks very New York-esque.
I mean, I don't think it is, but given where she is at the end of the movie. But all this plays out with no sound, and I think this is. I mean, obviously, it's a strong kind of like, you know, it's a strong stylistic choice at the start of the movie, but it's kind of important later, because the next time we kind of hear something similar like this is when she gets out into the world at the end. So it's kind of this idea of like her feeling alone, like she's running. Like it kind of mirrors her feeling here to the feeling she's going to feel later on. So, but it also gives you that thing where it does that thing where sound comes in right before the crash as she's talking on the, or she's listening to the boyfriend try to call her, and when she gets flipped over in the car when the truck hits her, it cuts to silence for the title.
Mm-hmm.
And for
it's very isolating, which is sort of the big thing in the film. She's sort of like isolating herself from the outside world. Even people are trying to call her, she's ignoring them. I mean, you get so much of the show don't tell in this because they're just literally showing you and not telling you.
Yeah, but that's the right way to do things. Which is which is just like bottle movies force this almost. It forces, at least with people who are competent enough to do it, it forces good filmmaking because you have to, otherwise it just won't work. You have no crutches to stand on. So yeah, but she wakes up handcuffed to like the railing next to the it's not like a bed, it's like a mattress on the floor. It's like, it's, you know, it looks like some sort of pervert sex den where he's got a captive victim. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, it's all like dimly lit with like that harsh yellow green light where she looks like she's in a bunker. There's only one door and it's like a heavy metal banker door or something, like a vault that she's in.
But one of the things,
not just her hands are cuffed, but her legs like wrapped in a chain also.
No, her hands aren't cuffed. It's just her leg.
Oh, you said handcuffs, so I thought maybe I missed it.
Yeah, it's like a handcuff and like the loop that's on her like leg brace thing that's up to the thing. But one of the things you said earlier is that she's immediately proactive. She immediately tries to figure things out, and she grabs like there's like an IV drip for her, and she immediately sort of like flips that over and tries to, because she's like she's got the clothes that have been taken off of her are sitting over there with like her wallet and stuff, and she pulls things that she, I mean, it's not MacGyvering it, it's just a pole. Like try to, but it shows that she's immediately trying to figure things out and try to think of a way out of the situation. So it shows you that she's like that immediately, which is smart. But at the same time, the opening sequence also showed that she just runs from things, and a big part of this movie is the idea that she's going to learn to not run from something if she feels that she should deal with it properly. So it's kind of the start of her character arc, but there's no service on her phone, right? Which, could just be the fact that they're underground, right? There could be things blocking it, but at the same time, it could also lend credence to the story that she's about to hear, which is that the civilization up above is gone, and that we're now in a post-apocalyptic landscape. So, there's all these little hints. And I think one of the things that's interesting to me about the characters in this is that everything that convinces her that this might all be real, almost none of it comes from John Goodman's character. And John Goodman's plan originally was always to be just him and her. Or him and whoever. Like, I mean, I'm sure he didn't necessarily pick out his target until, it was just more of a spur of the moment thing. Because it's not like he knew she was going to be driving there. Maybe he was stalking the station or something, waiting for a potential victim or something.
Right, and it's something that we don't really know that he's doing until later on anyway. Because Emmett tells him that, we know Emmett's there because he helped him build the shelter. So when stuff started happening, he knew where to go. Yeah,
as an employee, it's worth mentioning. It's not like he's also, he knew to come here when he saw a big flash because he helped build this place. So
and Goodman talks about his daughter, so you could think, well, maybe the extra room was for his daughter, or something. Just in case, or just another family member or something.
Yeah. So it gives you, but it was just it's Emmett talking about actually seeing a flash, which actually gives, okay, so something did kind of happen then. It doesn't mean everything's true, but it means something happened. And then of course, it just by happenstance she sees, she witnesses this woman who is at the door, with scarring and like an acid burn or something all over her face, and it's like, again, doesn't necessarily mean that it's because the air's toxic, but it does prove that there's something going on out there. It's not just normal everyday world. There are
somebody is trying to get in, and Emmett said that he injured himself trying to get in.
So there is like all the things that prove like, enough that she eventually stops like thinking about escaping, at least for some time, until there's other evidence to suggest that they kind of need to. Everything comes from somewhere else. Like, it was never anything like Goodman was able to convince her of or anything like that. It was all other things, because there is some truth. That's the crazy thing about all this, is that as crazy as he is, and we'll get to all the other things that he's kind of doing and why he's doing them or whatever, but there is some truth to what he's saying. There has been an attack, and lo and behold, it is actually aliens. So it's like,
it is a sci-fi movie.
It is a sci-fi movie, so he's not completely wrong. And hell,
it is strange that we have to like say that, you know, because we're reviewing this for the show, it's already a spoiler of what happens in the film.
And even the the air's not toxic in general, but they do use a gas at the end, so at least there is a little bit of credence to it, where it's like, oh no, but they are using gases.
Right. I mean, he doesn't know what's happening out there unless he had some sort of like, because of his crazy conspiracy theories, like maybe there was one that was true about some Martians. So he's like, well, these are the guys that are going to come get us. Or something.
But they plant all these seeds that sort of give you just enough that maybe he does kind of know something. Like, they say he worked with satellites when he was in the Navy, and that's why he maybe like where he got some of his crazy theories from. Is maybe he was privy to some weird transmissions that, you know, weren't public or something, like something, you know, tipped him off, or just little things like that. It's like, because there's a scene where they hear something overhead, and we get to see what one of these ships are at the end of the movie, but they hear some big aircraft, and the place is shaking, like, hey, what's that? And it's like, oh, it's military, but not ours. And Emmett's like, how can you tell? He's like, 14 years in the Navy. And I'm like, well, you can. This is just you being a conspiracy nut. You can't tell. But but it's also kind of funny, though, because he's right. It's not our military. It's you know, and when I say our, I don't even mean US. I mean our, like, as in Earth's military.
Right.
Collectively, this is not our military.
Right. Yeah.
So he's actually kind of right when he's talking about big attacks on the big cities first, the large population centers, and then phase 2 is the ground sweeps, which is kind of what's happening at the end of the movie. It's like he's actually kind of right about a lot of it in a weird way, but it doesn't change the fact that he's also a nut job who has all these other problems.
It doesn't change the fact that they might be safer outside. Yes.
So lot of interesting stuff. I you know, when she meets Emmett, and it's like, he's an actor as well, John Gallagher Jr., who we've seen in a bunch of things. I think, was he the one that was in the was he in the Me Too episode of Twilight Zone? Was that him? Was it that he was like the husband in that, I want to say?
I don't know. I don't recognize him from anything off the top of my head.
Oh, I've definitely seen him and stuff, although I don't think he usually has a beard. Yeah, he was in Hush, he was in Short Term 12. Yeah, I've seen him in a few things, actually.
I haven't seen those things, but I do really like him in this. I find him, he's very likable.
He's in 3 episodes of Westworld.
Okay, well, I've seen that.
So, you know.
I probably don't recognize him because of the beard then.
He was in The Newsroom, if you ever saw any of that.
I did. Wasn't for me.
Yeah. But he's been around, I guess is the point. You know, he's racked up some credits in the last decade or so. So yeah, I think he's very well cast as well. He's kind of this, you know, he's just this local guy. You know, his backstory when he talks about it is he has this big kind of regret where, you know, he was given a scholarship to go off and study somewhere, but he got kind of too scared of being like the dumb, like, farm boy sort of character in a university full of smart kids, and he kind of intentionally missed his bus and never went. So his arc for the movie is very much that he's actually willing to run at a certain point, like, because he's willing to just accept that this is a safe place at first. So his arc, which is kind of complete before his end, and we'll get to that, is that he is willing to run. He's willing to help her and like figure out a plan, which is different from her story, which I will save her story for later. We'll get through all the other things, because I really want to talk about all the little things, all the little moments between her and John Goodman that I think are great. Because when he first brings her out and he lets us walk out, he's like, okay, it's bathroom time. And like, there's one bathroom and it's kind of in his room, right? And he's like, on you go. And she's like, kind of need some privacy here. I can't really go where you stand. He's like, you're welcome to shut the curtain. And
I noticed that he didn't bring up the curtain right away.
Yeah. Well, I think what I like about it, though, is that he then follows up saying, I'm not some pervert, just go. Right? And this is the thing. I believe him that he's not getting satisfaction out of this, because I think it's very clear as the movie goes on. This is not a romantic thing. This is a daughter replacement thing, seemingly, from the rest of the movie, right?
I think that it starts off that way, but then there's very clearly a sexual thing that happens.
Okay. Oh well, we could debate, but regardless, in this moment, he's the way he says, "I'm not some pervert." Like even if this is sexual with her, that you want something like that down the line. Like I kind of
this scene does not feel that way.
Yeah, I kind of believe him that he's not into pissing. Okay, like that's what I'm getting at. I believe that this is not some satisfaction thing for him in this scene. But I think that's very intentional because, like we said, when she wakes up, she's in this room. It feels kind of like a sex dungeon for like someone who's been kidnapped. Everything about it feels that way. And he could come across a lot better than he does. Like, I think my temptation if I was making this movie would be to have him start off like more genuine, like he was, no, like seriously, you were hurt. I handcuffed you to the wall because it would have hurt your leg if you moved in your sleep. Here's the key. Yeah, because he does throw her. It's not a key. It's like a little tool to like get her out of it. But he throws her a tool and but he kind of makes it seem worse by like the way he's very vague about a lot of the answers he gives her, all that sort of stuff. So I think
I like it though. Like he just talks down to her all the time of just like, this is for your own protection. I've done this for you. Yeah, he does that. Take my word for it. But and there's something always a bit off about him. But
when he says, "I'm not some pervert," I think that's a very intentional capper to this first part of the movie, because everything from she woke up until now has felt like that's what it was. And it sort of started to unfold a little bit as she met Emmett and came outside, and it's like, okay, this is a bit different than maybe that is. So I think him saying that is kind of like the movie like making a definitive point here, saying, okay, let's move on from just thinking this is some guy who's kidnapped a woman for, sex dungeon reasons, right? And let's move on from there. I think that's a very intentional moment that's in the script for that reason, because I think they know everyone's going to be like thinking about that, because that's very much what it feels like, and it's intentional. It's not like they made a mistake and like, oh, people are going to be thinking this, we have to get them off of it. It's just a case of we have to progress this to the next stage of what the story is, and it's like, okay, here's a capper in that. Let's move on for now, and get to. But one of my favorite little moments though in this is that she's got a crutch because her leg's still hurt, right? And it's when she goes to walk towards the bathroom. There's a moment where she stumbles and she goes to trip, and Emmett just, puts his hand out to sort of like grab her arm and sort of keep her from falling. And John Goodman turns around and yells, "No touching. Keep your hands to yourself." Gets really upset about it. And it's just very weird because there was nothing weird or creepy about the moment. He was just helping her not fall down. But then he yells that, and then they both kind of give, like, they even look at each other. They just kind of both look like off to their own sides, like, okay.
It is very much I'm in charge and I have rules, and you guys have to obey those rules. Otherwise, he just wants everything to be a particular way. Even the bathroom stuff is like, I need to be here, first of all, because you've tried to escape already like 3 times. And so I just don't trust you. But also, like, we have schedules for using the restroom while we're here, because we have we're not living on the surface. This is, everything is is a system, and we have to be in constant control. There can't be any room for chaos or any room for...
Can't waste flushes.
Can't waste flushes. Can't waste, waste.
Yeah. Because, these moments are great. I mean, we kind of glossed over her first attempt where she sort of makes like a spear out of her crutch by sharpening it. And
she thinks she's in a sex dungeon.
Well, yeah, but there's like a funny beat there though where she sort of does all this. There's like a little montage of her making this, and she stands up against the wall, ready to strike, and then like 10 seconds pass and she realizes, oh, I might be waiting here for hours. I need to give him a reason to come back.
Yeah, but lights a fire.
But it's a legitimately funny little moment of realization of like, oh, this is stupid. I'm going to be standing here for like possibly 5 hours, 6. It might be tomorrow morning before he comes back.
It could be days.
So, but again, there is a little bit of like it finds a way to have a little bit of humor, just here or there, which is impressive given that it never takes away from the crushing tension that it otherwise has, which is really smart. Yeah, from here, I think the next big scene to talk about, really, with this stuff is the dinner scene, where he's made spaghetti, and I only remember that because there's so many shots of, like, awkwardly eating spaghetti in this scene, where they're slurping up spaghetti really awkwardly, and Emmett's trying to make small talk, right? I think this is after he showed her the pigs outside as well, up at the airlock door. Like, you know, these are the two pigs that are hurt, and she's seen the truck, which she remembers hitting into her. So it's like, no, this is bullshit. You hit me intentionally. This was not.
And she hears a vehicle of some type go by when she's in the bunker. Yeah,
like the day before. Yeah, and the reason why I'm even explaining all this is because her mission in this scene is to steal his keys so she can make a run for it. Right, that's what she's going to do. But one of my favourite little moments of performance, there's several in this scene. This scene is full of these little moments that make this movie so good. There's a way when they first sit down where John Goodman puts on this like fake smile for like 3 seconds and then kind of snaps out of it, and it's like, oh, aren't we like a happy family kind of smile, and then sheds it very quickly. Like the illusion goes away, which is a really good moment. But the one I love though is he's talking about like, so how's the sauce, and she's like, oh, it's fine, and it's kind of like awkward, and she's kind of nervous, and it's like, yeah, I'm not a great cook. I mean, I'm okay, you know, but Megan was a good cook. You'll learn to love cooking. And the look she gives him, the way her eyes look up at him when he says this, it's wonderful. Like,
not just that you're a captive, but you're going to be put to work.
like, and again, it's one of these things where like she doesn't quite know yet. Like, am I a fill-in for this? Like, because Megan sounds like a daughter, or am I a fill-in for a wife? Like, where is this going here exactly?
Who the hell is Megan? And yeah, and I'm obviously filling some sort of female role that you have for me.
Yeah,
by being the cook.
You think I'm going to cook, probably clean, just to I'll make an assumption that's the other thing he probably expects her to do. It's just this weird, and again, it's the way he just casually throws it out there, like it's nothing.
Yeah.
But Emmett, bless him, is trying to lighten the mood. He's trying to crack some jokes, and there's a great moment where she kind of like gives him this weird like look, and then then the next line comes and it actually makes her laugh, and you can kind of see John Goodman kind of watching, like they're connecting, they're bonding.
Well, yeah, they're getting along, which you think you'd be okay with. But then it's also a little bit of they're the same age and I'm much older than her. At least when I'm watching it too. Like, I don't want them to have a relationship.
Yeah, and again, I was kind of taking this as a, like, I mean, again, maybe it will turn weirdly sexual. I mean, who's to say? I mean, let's assume that what he says later about having a real daughter and that the wife took the daughter away from him is true. Let's assume that at one point there was a real Megan, because we know that the one he talks about was fake. And when I say fake, it was a kidnapped woman. Who he presumably murdered. But let's assume that was real at some point. Maybe the reason why the wife ran away with the daughter is because it did turn weird and incestuous. But for the most part in the movie, it does kind of feel like this sort of like overprotective father thing where he just hates the idea of her having something with him. And all she does is laugh at a joke. That's it. There's nothing even necessarily romantic about this interaction. He just reads into it.
But she notices.
Because, well, he snaps at them. He says, because, you know, he snaps and says, you know, I don't appreciate your jokes at the dinner table, and neither does Michelle. And again, it's another one of those moments where she just kind of gives him this look like, wait, what? What do you mean? What do you mean I don't? How dare you speak for me?
She's just figuring out the rules here.
But obviously far too scared to actually say that out loud to him. Just, you know, that's like that's the beauty of all this, is that he's in this position of power. He's got a gun on his belt. At no point can she just thingy. So she has to to get a rise out of him, she kind of exploits this by continuing the conversation anyway, and intentionally she's like, hey Emmett, can you pass the salt? And then she asks for the pepper, and she intentionally kind of like touches his hand. Just briefly, just for a moment, when she's asking for the pepper. And John Goodman erupts yells at Emmett to stay seated, has her up
Slams
against the
on
wall.
the table.
Yeah, slams on the table. Demands to know what that was. You think I'm blind? You know, maybe you should show me more appreciation. I do this, blah blah blah. It's a wonderful moment, and I think what's so great about this is that when she steals the keys off of his, because this is her again. This is her being proactive. Is she takes the keys off? This was all a ploy to get him in close, so she could take the keys off his belt. But we know that he's got what do we call it? A bottle cap.
Bottle opener?
Bottle, thank you. That's the first I was looking for. A bottle opener. He's got a bottle opener on his keys, and it's a great moment because the scene starts when he first sits down at the table. It starts with him using it to uncap his bottle, and after they sit back down after this, when she's got his keys, there's a moment where he picks up a second bottle, and his fingers just doing that along around the top of it. But you know that if he goes for his keys to open his bottle, he's going to know they're gone. So it just plays with the tension of he might immediately just notice they're gone. Like this might be already over.
She's got to make a decision here fast.
Yeah, and she does by smashing a ball over his head and making a run for it. But this, of course, is when the woman with the face that's all, burned or scarred or whatever shows up at the door, and she's convinced that outside's not safe and that she can't open the door, and willingly comes back in. And this calms things down. And John Goodman makes this smart ploy to admit that he hit her car, but claims it was an accident, that he was keeping that secret because,
he heard about the invasion
Yeah.
and just wanted to race home as fast as possible and then hit her on the way and felt guilty about it, and that's why he took her.
Yeah. So it's like a plausible enough thing, because you kind of get why he would lie about it, right? Why you wouldn't want her to know, especially if she already feels unsafe around him. Like, oh, by the way, I'm the one who hit your car. Like, you kind of believe why he would keep that, if he was otherwise genuine, why he'd have kept that secret. But offering that truth, partial truth, I should say, offering that partial truth, along with the actual evidence of something outside, is kind of what settles it down for the middle portion of the movie, where they kind of do have a bit of a happy existence for a little while.
Okay. I'll agree that you maybe have saved my life. And that maybe this is better than being outside.
Yeah. In fact, one of the small moments that I really liked earlier is when he first says he saved her. And that's maybe the first scene they're in together. She actually does say thank you, but it's like a really like...
Yeah, it's like, whatever you want. Whatever you need to hear.
It's thank you. Can I have a phone so I can, phone my parents and tell them I'm okay or something like that? And he's like, they're not okay. They're all dead. Everyone you know is dead. A lot of little things in the performances to take away from these characters. The scene where Emmett talks about his backstory, we should also talk about the other side of that, which is Michelle talking about hers, are specifically kind of the key things that drive her character, which is that she had an abusive father, not sexually abusive, not like that, but a father who did get angry, and more importantly, she had a brother who kind of like was always there to take the brunt of and kind of protected her from her father. And she tells a story about how she was in a store a couple of years ago, whatever it was, and she saw like a girl be kind of like, their dad was kind of being rough and pulling her like down, just kind of roughly with the arm, was kind of like maybe a
pulling her by the arm, but just a little too hard. Yeah. And
then when she kind of made some trip at one point, he kind of turned around and hit her, and she says she wished she could have been for her what her brother was for her, been this protector, but ultimately chickened out, right? So that sort of like sets up her arc for the movie, which is she's very proactive in this movie.
She's still very afraid of that father, though.
Yeah,
even as an adult when she's safe from him.
Which is why it fits beautifully into John Goodman wanting her to be a daughter figure for him, is that he's an abusive father again for her to fight
She's
back.
She's going to get stuck in that cycle.
And that's why Emmett, it never feels like a romantic interest. He feels like a brother character, and he even takes the brunt for her later on in a really big way when things really hit the fan. So it's really smart how it's not super deep or super like intricate. It's just really simple, but it works. Like all the characters click together because they all fill into these roles that relate to her story and what her trauma is and what she's trying to like get over. So that's really neat. It's really neat stuff. So Yeah, we get a montage. We get a montage. He's got a
building puzzles and playing
puzzles,
Sorry.
watching movies. You know,
he's got a nice collection of VHS and DVD. Or something he says.
Yes, and given that this, it was set, I think, when it came out, which was 2016, the VHS in particular feel a little bit outdated at that point.
A little bit. He's very. I like the way he says it, though. There's always something just a little bit off about his delivery.
He does feel like he's living like 2 decades ago, constantly. He kind of has that vibe about him. And maybe that's because that's when he had a wife and daughter. Maybe they've been gone a while.
Yeah. My cat just keeps trying to sleep on my keyboard. I'm sorry. I just don't want him to hit like a space bar or something that causes everything to freeze.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, there's little things here. Like, it mentions that she wants to be a fashion designer. And this was one of these little details. It doesn't sound like a big deal, other than, like, okay, later she's going to try and make a hazmat suit, effectively. But
right.
I think what I liked about this detail, especially watching it a couple of times, is that it made me think about, like, the way she says it, right? When she talks about, like, when John Goodman gives her a box of stuff, because she never changes out of her original clothes until after this section where she's tried to escape and then is accepted that this is real in some way. And that's when he teaches her to stitch his head up, and they kind of bond a little bit. And it sets up the coal spray thing, which she's going to use later on. But this is when she's actually switched into some of the clothes that he's given her, right? So she's kind of accepted that a little bit, and she opens up and she talks about, and the way she says, I wanted to design clothes. It sounds very past tense, like that was something she was perhaps, maybe her relationship with whoever this guy was, this Ben, like maybe part of that was like not pursuing what she wanted to do. That was something she had to give up for a guy, and that kind of like, fits into, again, her character a lot. It's not like a big thing, but it was just one of those little details where I was like, she said that.
In the beginning, you do see like the fashion little mannequin in the back that designers use to create clothing and stuff. So it's almost like she was there for school, but then had to leave and just left everything all at once.
Yeah, it was the way she said it. It didn't sound like she was just saying it in the past tense because the world's ended. It sounded like it was already a past tense thing when she got into that car.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that was just an interesting little detail that I picked up on the second or third viewing. So I was watching it. I don't know which one it clicked for me, but it clicked. So that was a little detail. So yeah, it's all fun. It's all happy. And then they work together to solve a problem. There's a problem with the air filtration, and she's the only one small enough to crawl in these little vents to get to it. So she does. She restarts it. It's all fine. But there's an exit here. There's like a padlocked, door, hatch. And when she goes up there and has a look outside, she notices that someone on the window had written, "Help me." And it clearly implies that even before this apocalypse, he had someone captive down here before who was trying to escape. It
was scratched from the inside.
Yeah. And it was written in reverse, so whoever would read it in the outside would read it properly, which is really smart. I feel like it would be okay if you didn't, because I think anyone who saw it backwards would be able to tell, they could tell it said "help me."
It's a 4-letter word, yeah.
But, I like that the previous victim was able to, be that smart. But what's interesting is that when she shows him the photo of, Megan, air quotes, immediately Emmett's like, "That's not Megan." And she's like, "What? That's a girl who went to like school with my little sister. She went missing like a couple of years ago."
Right. That's when the dread sweeps over her again.
And then there's a second photo of that girl like sitting on the couch with him, with John Goodman, and it's like, oh no.
Oh, I thought that was his daughter, because she looked like a very different girl.
Oh, no, I'm pretty sure it was the same girl, and she was wearing the same shirt that Winstead was currently wearing as well.
I guess that's true, yeah.
So.
Right. Okay. I thought that he really had a daughter, because when Emma said, "Oh, that's not his daughter," because like not only does he recognize her, but he knows what his daughter looked like.
Yeah, no, I think it's just because he recognizes her. No, I still kind of believe he did have a daughter at one point. Like maybe that's this all started because he did have a daughter that was taken away from him, and given what he's like, I don't blame his wife. Like I feel like she made the right call.
A little bit of a nut bar.
She made the correct call, I think.
Yeah, a little unstable.
But this sets them into motion where, like, okay, and I love this. I love this in simple movies like this where it's like, okay, we're going to be proactive. Let's have a plan. And it's like, look, I design clothes. I can make a hazmat suit. And it's like, okay, and one of us can go try and get help. Like, we have a way out. We have a plan.
Yeah, it's basically, we're not safe here. He's not who he says he is. And who knows how long we're going to be trapped here. Or even if the air is, like, poisoned, if it's fine by now, like, he might still make us wait here. Like, yeah.
So this is wonderful stuff because it can kind of completes Emmett's arc in a lot of ways because he's willing to go. And for her, you know, once they do kind of get cut out, and there's a couple of really great tense scenes. There's a scene where, this is one of the other, like, he makes a comment and it just says a lot about who John Goodman's character is in this, where they're playing the game where they're, like, describing things and they have to, like, guess what they're describing. And Emmett's trying to, you know, get him to say Little Women, right? The book, or maybe one of the movies, whatever the card said. And he says, and he gets the first word little, right, quite easily. Yeah. And he's like, oh, and the second word, and he's like, Michelle is a, and if first he says girl, which is fine, like, no one, I don't think anyone would think twice about that if someone said girl first. But then he's like, no, she's older, so she's a, he's like, girl, child. And when he says child, the look on Winstead's face is wonderful.
Yeah. Like, what?
It's like he cannot think of her in anything other than his baby girl to be taken care of, kind of thing. And then, but I loved that when he revealed what it was, the way John Goodman takes a little timer and goes, next time, be more specific.
Yeah. It wasn't his fault. It was Emmett's fault.
Oh, he blames Emmett for everything. Emmett's this third wheel in this scenario.
Well, Emmett wasn't supposed to be there.
He's not, no. He sort of, like, forced his way in at the last minute. And it's kind of, it's again, it's this interesting thing where it gives Winstead this big brother character who, when he does reveal, and yes, he also does the Santa thing, where it's really tense because it sounds like he's like, I know what you're doing. I can see what you're doing. I'm always watching.
I'm always watching. He starts to get pissed off. But only because they're not getting the answer, not because he actually knows what they're doing.
Yeah. But when when he does kind of come in and says, hey, we're having a meeting now, and he makes them pull out this barrel, which turns out to have acid. I'm going to assume it's the same acid that was in episode 3 of Breaking Bad, for reference, if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about. But where it composes biological material, humans will decompose them down to the bone. Yeah, because a totally sane man would have that lying around for no particular reason.
I'm surprised they didn't ask him about the barrel before, because it's not like there's a lot of space. I mean, I guess it was kind of in a hidden wall, but...
Yeah, it was in like a little compartment.
It looked like a little closet or something. Yeah.
I can, because I don't think we get the sense that it's been that much time. Like at the start of the movie, that she's been there for a couple of days, and maybe it's been a few weeks by the time we get to this point.
The montage goes by and it makes it seem like they've been there for a while, I suppose.
Yeah,
they're getting along.
They watch a few movies. They do a few jigsaw. They play a few games.
A jigsaw puzzle that's missing pieces, isn't that annoying?
I was very upset, especially when you can't just go and buy a second version of it. So, yeah, we have this tense scene where he's like, what were you doing? When he pulls out the scissors and the thread that he noticed went missing. And basically, Emmett does the big brother thing. He takes the fall. He puts his neck out for her, just like her brother used to, with more dire consequences. John Goodman accepts the apology, and in what is maybe the best moment of direction in the entire film, and that's saying something because I think there's a lot of good direction in this movie.
Yeah.
But the way it does this, and I again, there's a little detail that I noticed more as well as I saw it again, is that not only does the gun just come up in silence and shoot Emmett in the face, which is a really stark, horrific moment, and then all the sound goes away, which again brings me.
But you get that ringing.
You get the ringing, but it kind of mirrors the silence of the opening a little bit, right? Where she's like on her own again and like vulnerable. But one of the things that I really loved that sold it this time when I watched it is the close-up where the gun comes up into frame and shoots him, right? Because the close-up's on Mary Elizabeth Winstead and the gun kind of comes up in front of her, is that when John Goodman says, I accept your apology, she sort of sighs and kind of closes her eyes for like it's more of a blink than anything, but she closes her eyes just for long enough,
just a relief, yeah, that
she doesn't see the gun come up. So the gunshot itself is actually the shocking moment for her. And I didn't really need it to be explained to me, or like I wasn't really questioning why didn't because the hand comes up so quickly and shoots him. Like it would take like a second to process like what's happening in front of you, especially something so shocking as that. But the fact that she does shut her eyes for that split second as the hand would be coming up, and then opens them as the gunshot happens, just adds to that little detail of like she didn't see it coming.
Right.
And not only didn't see it coming, but the sigh of relief is her thinking they're out of the woods. Like it's like it's the opposite feeling. And
only
then,
to find him like surrounding her, trying to comfort her, saying that's okay. This is the way it was always supposed to be. Like I was just waiting to find my opportunity to get to justify this action.
Yeah, I think the first thing you kind of hear him say as the sound's coming back is, "He was going to hurt you. He was going to hurt me."
Yeah.
But it's okay now. And I think my favorite like choice from a narrative point of view for this bit, or for the scene after this, when he comes back to see her in the room and offer her ice cream.
Yes, I hate this moment. He
is clean shaven. He is shaved.
His shirt's tucked in, and it is such a disturbing moment.
Is this why you specifically think it was going to turn sexual? Is because he was kind of okay. No, I can see a reason for it.
And also because he abducted a little girl and put her in his dungeon. The Megan stuff.
Oh, the previous girl. Okay. I don't know if I'd call. I mean, he thinks of Mary Elizabeth Winstead as a little girl, clearly, based on that game.
No, once the Megan stuff started like to reveal itself, I was like, okay. Why do men abduct little girls?
What can I say? I guess I just think it'd be more interesting if it wasn't sexual, just because it's always sexual. But
yeah. I don't know. I think that's where this is definitely headed.
I think because the movie never actually goes to that point, like it's there. If you believe that's what he's ultimately going to do, it's there. And if you don't want to like have to think that far, you don't have to. It doesn't get there. I think it's intentionally a little ambiguous, even if yes, more than likely he was building up to something.
I think well, I also think that he ran her off the road on purpose because he saw her at the gas station, because he also always planned to have a female in that bunker with him. Oh, for sure. No, definitely. There was always going to be a female companion of some type.
Oh, definitely. Obviously, I don't think he picked anyone specific. It was obviously
I think she was opportunity. Yeah. Flash happened or was going to happen.
Which makes me suspect that he was going to kidnap someone new anyway, regardless. The fact that the apocalypse actually happened is just like almost coincidental. But, which is part of the fun of the movie in a weird way. It's like, because this could all be fake, right? Like the end of this movie could be this was a lie the whole time, none of it was real, and it was all just an abduction thing. But the fact that when we get outside, no, there is actually alien stuff going on. It's like there's like these two horrible things that just happen to coincide with each other.
I mean, I think he did it because she's listening to the radio and stuff. She's not really listening to it, like paying attention. But we do hear on the radio that something is going on.
Oh yeah, the start.
And that happens before he crashes into her car. So it's probably like, this is it. Like something's going on, and this is the moment I've been waiting for. I better get me a girl now. This girl was pretty cute. I'll take her.
Yeah, it's there's the first murmurs on the radio of like, oh, there's some strange activity off the coast of whatever. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know what it said, but it was something like that. So
I think it's something about like Washington going dark or something.
But this stuff is so good. Like in terms of like its direction, how skeevy it is, and just like he offers her ice cream, and I think the line that really is so good here is like, I thought we'd have dessert before dinner because we can do what we want now. Like what do you mean we? Like you can do what you want now because there's no
also like your brother character of Emmett was keeping me in check, and now he's gone.
Yeah, it's so suggestive. It's so well done, and of course, it's very quick after this that he comes in to see her again, and like the little screw falls off the vent where she's hiding the gas mask she's been making out of bottles, and he finds the suit, and she has to just run for it. It's just this, you know, make or break moment. It has to be now or never. And we get the standoff, and this is, I like this. She specifically goes in to steal the cold spray thing, right? I love that the movie set that up, because it's not just that it sets up that he uses it for his drinks. He specifically tells a story about breaking off
the Navy.
Yeah, about breaking off the lock on a door, so that the superior officer would be trapped in there for a few hours. But
yeah, no scene is really wasted in this.
No,
like everything seems to come back.
Everything comes back. Everything has a purpose. She kicks over the drum. I specifically like the fact that it eats away at the carpet. You can sort of see where it's, you know, there's like a sort of just the wooden floor for like a big circle where the carpet.
And it has that blob effect where it starts off like kind of slimy yellow and then turns red.
And it starts a fire, which I mean, it feels very convincing that it would eat through the cable and start some trouble. Like, it doesn't feel far-fetched. So John Goodman's like in this acid, and so when we see him next, he's got like a Two-Face thing going on where half of his face is all...
He's partly corroded and melted.
Yeah, and he goes full slasher villain. He starts stabbing the vents when she's climbing through them because she's like making a break for it. It's all super entertaining stuff, and it feels like we've earned it because we've been building for so long. And I think, you know, the shooting of Emmett did feel like okay, this is the start of Act 3. This has to be the start of like everything going down.
Yeah.
So, and sure enough, she gets to the hatch. She freezes the lock. You know, the padlock. Smashes it off, takes a few attempts, gets outside, and it goes quiet. Like, she's standing out there, it's made out of the plastic shower curtains which she's used for the hazmat suit. She's out there, and it's serene. There's not a noise. You know, there's a little tension when she gets like the leg gets ripped a little bit, and she has to duct tape it quickly in case she's going to be infected. But then right after that, she sees the birds, and it's like, the birds seem okay. Screw it, like, you know. How long can I survive in this hazmat suit anyway? I might as well, if it might be safe.
Well, yeah, I mean, also some air got in when she did the suit, and when she patched it up, she didn't notice a difference. So maybe the air is fine.
And sure enough, it seems to be. She seems fine. She breathes in. It's all very nice. I mean, the bunker explodes because obviously all the fire stuff was happening in the background.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's perfectly quiet. But it's starting to get dark, and she wants the keys to the car. And this is when, before the actual monster, the sort of I'll refer to it as a big alien dog, for lack of a better term, because it kind of feels like it is like, maybe, I don't know if I want to say unintentional,
a little raptor-esque.
But it kind of feels like when the ship comes back to take it later, it's like, oh, that thing got away, go and fetch your pet, kind of attitude to it. But this thing has like an anus mouth that opens up with lots of little teeth on it. And it attacks her in the truck. She has to hide in the shed, and there's a whole chase sequence that unfolds. She does see the ship briefly over the cornfield though, and then eventually it comes back. It's a very close encounters shot as it comes from behind the house.
I like that scene though, because when she steps up, like she steps on top of the vehicle, she looks over, she sees something floating in the air that's far away, and she thinks, well, we have like airplanes and blimps and stuff, but there's something not right about this.
Yeah. Sure.
And then when it turns around and it's not moving like anything she recognizes on Earth, she's like, oh, are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah, there was actually some truth to some of this shit, sadly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it actually, if I was to compare it to Earth, it actually looks, and I'm not just saying this because it's a Firefly thing, but it looks a little bit like some of the Reaver ships and like Serenity. It was giving me kind of that vibes.
I don't remember.
But yeah, but I mean, they didn't have the technically parts that this has eventually, but just the general shape of it reminded me of that. But and I liked that it does start to spray a gas when the ship shows up, so she has to like dart back to her gas mask, like, oh, this may actually be handy now.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I have a complaint about this section, which I do enjoy, I think it's fun. I think it's fun that this all is like actually happening. It makes it fit into sort of the Cloverfield kind of theme. Is that I do think her taking down the whole ship with a Molotov cocktail to its like sensitive like hole is a bit, it's a bit too action movie and like over the top. versus like, the rest of it, you know?
I mean, we got the establishment of the Chekhov's whiskey bottle in the beginning of the film.
True, yes. That was the bottle she had with her at the start, yeah.
Yeah, and she, which, I mean, I don't know how it survived being flipped over from the beginning anyway, but all right. We know it was there. And, you know, she's been a fighter this whole film. She's been trying to fight her way out of this, and it turns out like he really was prepping her for the apocalypse of an alien invasion. You know, she's out of the frying pan and into the fire situation and finds her way through it.
It's just the over the top visual effect of seeing the truck picked up and her throwing a Molotov into the entranceway. It felt like a big dumb movie blockbuster scene, and in a movie that otherwise has been very reserved and indie feeling, and
but there was
place.
Still I don't mind it so much because they've been showing us the whole movie that she is capable of finding her way out of a sticky situation.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it gets more and more intense each time to the point
I'm
where
not critiquing it from the sense of like her ability. I'm critiquing it from a tone problem. Like it just feels out of place.
Okay.
That's all I mean. It feels like
the Cloverfield part feels out of place for you.
No, not the whole thing. Just this moment, like running from the monster's fine, seeing the ship, like chasing her's fine, all that stuff. Seeing it off in the distance, all fine. Just the big action movie moment of like she single-handedly destroys an entire spaceship on her own with a Molotov. Just feels a bit, I don't know, over the top. You know, it takes me out of it just a little bit. So. You know, it's an epic. It's not a big thing, but
yeah,
you know, it's there. But she gets the keys from the dead woman and all this, and takes her car, and drives off. And here's on the radio of two locations. One, I can't remember which one was which. One was Baton Rouge. I can't remember which one the other one was. But one was there's shelter and safety here, a camp that you can go to.
Yeah, I think it was like northern Texas or something.
Yeah. One's a place for safety where you can seek refuge, and the other one. Is where we're actually starting to win the fight a little bit. So if you have any medical or combat experience and you think you can help, then come here. And that's specifically the one she has to do. Like the straight ahead's the safety, taking the left turn is to go help the fight. And she specifically, that in this completes a character arc, she turns left to go and help because like for Emmett's death to mean something, for her brother's whatever he did for her when she was younger to mean something, because he's probably dead now. Maybe he's in the army. Maybe he's fighting. He's in the resistance. He's fighting the aliens. Who knows?
Maybe.
But
yeah, she makes this is her standing up to that man that was pulling on the little girl and to her father.
But this is her going to help protect the planet. Yeah, right. She can help some people. So it's neat. It's a simple character arc. It works. Everything clicks together between all the different character arcs. Yeah, and I dig the alien stuff at the end. It's just the action movie moment of the Molotov, and like she single-handedly takes down a whole ship. It feels a bit like superhero almost.
Yeah, I suppose the ship, it seems to be like organic and biological, so she did like throw a makeshift bomb into its mouth or whatever the orifice is.
It had flaps.
Yeah.
I'm not like it wasn't shaped like anything. It was just a circle, but it did have flaps. It had like 3 flaps.
It seemed like it was a weak point. She found a way to take down the boss.
I feel like if most of us had Molotovs shoved in any orifice, it would probably be pretty effective.
It'd probably take us down. Yeah.
It would be effective. Even the earlobe. I mean, it's still the head.
The brain's behind there.
Fun. Kind of uplifting. I mean, at first it's a bit of a downer because it's like, oh shit, she's gotten out, but the world's like over. But then we hear, no, we're fighting back, we're winning. You know, people who are able to like survive, and the strong, which she is. The movie's done nothing but show us that she is strong. She was strong even before, and she was proactive even before she had her arc. But like, it's almost like she's proactive because she's forced into a position where she feels like she's just trapped and she has to like start fighting back like this. Like it's a natural instinct. But she truly like gets to the point where she's going to make that choice no matter what by the end of the movie because she's put through this tough time. So, yeah, that's good stuff. And as she's driving away, we see the letterbox, or the post box, sorry, which says 10 Cloverfield Lane. That was his address, just to bring it all together.
Yep. This definitely seems like it was not a Cloverfield movie in the beginning, but then was turned into one.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any reason why movies for an anthology like this. In fact, me and Tim just reviewed Tales from the Crypt Demon Night, and I said there's no reason why the stories that in these movies have to be developed as Tales from the Crypt movies. They can just be fun horror movie scripts that just happen to fit the tone of Tales from the Crypt, and just put the bookends on it, and that's you. You've got a Tales from the Crypt movie.
Put in the Crypt Keeper doing his puns.
And same with Cloverfield. Like, if all you have to do is work in the word Cloverfield and maybe at least imply some sort of alien element to it, even if there's not an alien vibe to the whole thing, then sure, do it. Like, whatever.
Yeah, I'd say give me more, but I heard that the next one is not good.
Well, you're going to find out.
Yeah, I have not seen it.
You're going to find out, which had an even more like spur of the moment release than this one did. This was a
right.
This was a Super Bowl spot that said later tonight on Netflix.
Yeah, I remember that. I watched that Super Bowl. Did not watch the movie though.
There was a shadow drop, as we call it in the video game industry.
That's right.
So you don't usually get shadow drop stuff in the movies because movies, by their nature, are like, oh, this is coming out in a year. This is coming out in 2 years. We're going to count down.
Well, now that you can go straight to a streaming service, you don't have to release it in the theater. Maybe you can keep it more secret.
Yeah, you can. Apparently, it's funny, the day of recording, apparently Netflix are teasing that David Fincher's dropping something on Netflix tomorrow. So
what? Crazy.
Yeah. Sadly,
the Social Network sequel.
Sadly, it's probably going to be a movie that we knew was working on, and not season 3 of Mindhunter, which is what I want it to be. But you know,
can't always get what you want.
Screw you, Fincher. It's a 7-season plan. We've got this story in the background that's going to be building for the whole show. Oh, I don't feel like making season 3. Season 2 was a lot of work. Prick.
Hey, maybe it will be season 3. Maybe you'll eat those words.
I would love nothing more than to eat those words. I would love nothing more. But no, this is a delightful thriller that has sci-fi overtones, and then obviously the sci-fi ending. But I think if nothing else, you can sort of look at it in a sense that it's about what makes someone capable of surviving the sci-fi like alien invasion. That's what the movie's about. So that's why the alien invasion part's just at the end, because it's about making someone ready for it.
Yeah, he really did prep her.
Yeah. You're saying that. You're saying prepper.
Well, I played a lot of Far Cry 5. There's a lot of prepper stations.
Ah, yes. As someone who's playing a little bit of Far Cry 6 right now, I am sick to the death of the word gorilla. They keep saying gorilla.
Oh, gorilla.
You can be the best gorilla.
That's what you are. You're the gorilla.
But they never shut up about it. That's all they say.
Well, it hasn't gotten to the point where it annoys me yet, but
Yeah.
I'll be taking a little break from Far Cry for a minute.
Yes. So, there you go. That's 10 Cloverfield Lane. It is a very, very good movie, and I think Tara is about to rate it fairly highly.
You suspect, huh? Yeah, I really loved the film. I loved watching it. I remember watching it in the theater and being very impressed by it, and haven't seen it since then until we watched it for this review. And boy, I still really like it. Wasn't really very much that changed the second viewing. I think a lot of the details I remembered incredibly well from the first time. And
yeah. If anything, I would say the end, like, you know, when she gets out and the aliens are real. If anything, that is like better, because like I think the first time it would be a little jarring because you're not really sure if it's going to go that way. So you're kind of like, I think knowing it's going there at the end actually makes it flow even better.
Yeah, maybe. I wasn't quite sure when I watched it. I thought some of it could have been a setup, or at least it wasn't like he was saying. And the Cloverfield thing was just like a red herring or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, really, really enjoy it. I'll give it an 8.5.
I'm also going to give it, so it's 8.5 Cloverfield Lane, I think you'll find.
Right.
Now, even 8.5 is what I had in my mind. I think I gave it an 8 when it came out, and I think I've went up a 0.5 on the repeat viewings because it holds up.
Yep.
I think there's nothing worse than thinking you really like a movie because it was a good enough time in the theater, and but then you watch it again a few years later and go, it's not as good as I remembered. It's just, it's fine, it's good, but it's not. This is one that I think actually holds up and kind of goes into I think, people who hear me complain about movies probably think I'm a jaded movie guy who hasn't liked anything in years. But no, believe it or not, there's a good handful every year that I do really like. It's just, you see trailers for Home Alone 6, Scream 5, and like other things that just keep coming back.
Looking forward to the Ellie Kemper Jojo Rabbit kid Home Alone.
Joe's so funny is the kid's mum in the new movie I recognized, and I looked up her IMDb and I'm like, I've not seen any of this. Why do I know her? And it's because she's actually on panel shows in the UK a lot. I've seen her on like shows where she's just herself. Like I didn't even know she was an actress, which is why it took me like a second to be like, where did I know her from? I can know her face. But
I had that with Olivia Munn because I only knew her from G4.
No, why an Irish woman has a son who has a Kiwi accent? I mean,
whatever, that kid's great.
I don't know why, but yes. I also saw an article the other day. It said, is Ghostbusters Afterlife the start of a Ghostbusters cinematic universe? And I'm like, no, stop it. Why is everything got to be cinematic universes now? Shut up.
I'm not that excited for Ghostbusters, honestly.
Like, I might like the movie, but I'm getting so jaded with everything coming back and everything being a nostalgia sequel now and everything. Anyway. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Cloverfield Lane, which we're finished. So I will take this opportunity to ask you to like and subscribe and ding the bell for notifications and all that jazz. It helps us out a lot if you do. And you can also, of course, get us on the Twitters at Screams Midnight for all your Mail Fuzz movies needs. And I will remind you once again that we're not necessarily taking a week. I mean, it may be a week off actually by the time we get to the next episode. But
we'll be back for Dune for sure.
Yeah,
if not something sooner.
Yeah, Dune is definitely happening when it comes out, but you might get 2 episodes close together. Whether there's one right before Dune or one right after Dune, you'll probably get 2 close together as we kind of catch up a little bit. But that is a planned absence. Babylon 5's taking a week off as well.
And Twilight Zone.
Yeah. So do not worry about it. So cool. Why I'm doing this in the middle of the plugs before I get to the Patreon producers, I don't know. But Tara's going to pose for the thumbnail. So here we go. Okay, I'm going to set you up with a line, and I'm hoping you're going to react to it. Okay. 3, 2, 1. You'll learn to love cooking.
Yikes.
Good. Nice attempt. Nice attempt.
I'm not an actress.
That's fair. Yes. Nor am I an actor, for the record. But yeah, so those little moments are so good. Alright, so you can of course support us on Patreon. Our Patreon producers, which are one of our higher tiers, are as follows. I would like to thank them: Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Bordenow, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. Those are our producers for the month. But of course, you can head over to Patreon to support us for as little as $1. Isn't that right, Tara?
That's right, Peter. You don't want to just keep going with that? No? Okay.
Yeah, you can finish it. That's fine.
Sure. All right. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you'll get access to bonus episodes of The Ace. You can find your favorite B movies there and maybe some higher quality ones too, like Time Cop or Judge Dredd. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these reviews one day early, and you'll be able to vote on what we watch once a month, like 10 Cloverfield Lane. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, what you don't all know, that if you go all the way back to like episode 3 of this show, you can hear me say in the middle, you'll learn to love doing the Patreon plug.
Yikes. I am captive.
Yeah, let's stop this joke right now. I don't want I don't want accusations being thrown my way. Thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer at Salsa.